Hello, this is One Man Left, and a couple days ago I came out with a video on Molten Strike of the Zenith and a rough outline of how the character shapes together endgame with some earlier game POBs. Like there's a level 89 POB in there, but I had a lot of requests in the comments for people to do a leveling tree, so this is that video. Normally I don't do these for two main reasons. The first is I am not the world's most skilled leveler because I'm someone who plays, stacker type characters usually for, one character, like 1 to 2 characters per league. Last league I only played 2 characters. That's my typical league. I don't do an Act 10 run every week. I do 1 to 2 per league. So there are more skilled levelers out there, and I usually don't like to speak on subjects that I don't feel I'm knowledgeable on. Which brings the second point of why I don't do leveling videos usually, which is the fact that then people who are fairly knowledgeable about leveling, if I give like any sort of advice to a problem where there are 500 different solutions that all work, everyone just jumps in and is convinced that like, no, you're doing this wrong. Why do you have bone shatter? Why aren't you Sunder? Why? And just shut the fuck up, okay? If you think you know what you're doing leveling, just do it, okay? You weren't the one asking for the video. If you don't know what you're doing leveling, this video is for you. Alright. We're going to start with a pretty typical Marauder start here. So, the tree is going to try to get to a point where it can transition into basically the level 89 tree, or what is it, 91 for the cheaper version of the build, and like try to be a little bit cheap, but we don't really know how costly regrets will be next league with the gold change, but I'm gonna try to like somewhat minimize them, like to an extent. So to start off, the first like 8 points of Marauder starts are just the exact same for everyone. Like everyone ever takes this start. It's standard. This is good still for 2. This is actually like kind of a good floater point. It's just 16 phys, 16 life. But then I'm going to come down over here. And I'm probably going to make my way. There's a couple different ways. They're all kind of right. I'm probably going to make my way this way. I like to get the move speed penalty gone. It's good for, actually just going fast and leveling. From there, I'm probably going to grab the... You can do these 2 out of order, maybe. Maybe this makes sense to go first, and this makes sense to go second, because it's a longer travel node. But either way, you're going to kind of wind up the same way. Then you're going to get to these 2-hand nodes. After that, once again, I would say all 3 of these options, the order doesn't necessarily matter. They're all pretty valid. This 2-hand wheel gets your first mastery. That's really good. The 40% damage to hits against rares and uniques is really good, especially early game when your character doesn't have a lot of damage scaling percent. And the only things that really live against you are rares and uniques. So this is a mastery that early on is probably like 20% more damage. So that's a really good mastery to take. From there, there's a couple directions you can go. There's another 2-hand wheel yet again over here. From there, this is going to be like the first stretch of a couple nodes that like aren't great. But then it kind of gets good again. So here, there's a good combo over here with Bastion Breaker and Wrecking Ball. There's some okay masteries here. But I think probably the max phys damage is the best. And then still more good 2-hand masteries. 3% double damage is like kind of a meme. It's kind of like for a long fight, like an act boss, this is fine because you'll probably get like 1 to 2 hits over the course of the fight. And the average increase in damage is 6%. But it's going to be like really inconsistent for leveling. So like this is kind of an optional mastery, but it's kind of like on average good. Another 2-hand wheel over here that's really good. You get the life leech here. It doesn't matter which ones you get your mastery, but you have basically like 4 2-hand areas that are all kind of good. About this point, you will first off be going your lab. I would say Unstoppable first is borderline a no-brainer. I used to favor Unbreakable when it gave the LE damage reduction, but now it doesn't anymore. It gives Chaos damage reduction from armor. And Chaos damage in the early acts is basically non-existent. Really, aside from like a couple Vol constructs in the Act 2 Temple, really the first time you're going to see any significant Chaos damage is R. Kelly in Act 7. So really, until like level 55, you don't really need Chaos Res. So I'm probably going to go Unstoppable first, just because it's speed, and early on when you lack a lot of immunities, stun immune, freeze immune, chill immune, temp chains immune, all that stuff that slows you. This is going to probably just give you the fastest campaign, just taking Unstoppable. It's so comfy. So that's your first lab point. Once you start to get a little bit of damage, and like I said, on all these, the order is kind of just how you need it. Like this isn't the exact order, but if you do any 2 or 3 or 5 of these out of order, just based off what you need, that's fine. But I'm gonna go for here because mana cost is gonna start to get pretty high once you get up to like a 4-link. I'm on a 4-link. I'm at 20 cost or 19 cost right now on a 4-link with like level 12 gems. That's a little sustainable with like an Enduring Flask or whatever, but like if you just get a Mana Leech node at this point, this is not a bad 2-pointer. It gives you 23% cost reduction, and then it gives you access to a mastery that, if you get 1 Mana Mastery, you can get the 12% Mana Reservation Efficiency. That's effectively just, 12% more armor you can get. I don't think I'm going to bother with Warcries. I am planning on going Sunder. That's the plan right now. You get it at level 12. So I'll just Ground Slam from level 1 to level 12. At level 12, I'll get Sunder. From there, some people switch to Bone Shatter after Gravicious. But I'm probably going to stick Sunder. If you are comfortable playing Bone Shatter, you can play Bone Shatter and go that way. But it's a comfort point at that point. Like, this is what I was saying earlier, where there's 500 ways to kill Kitava. You could kill Kitava as a Firestorm Juggernaut. It does not, like, you're in the margins of minutes. But if you're comfortable playing Bone Shatter, go Bone Shatter. That also makes Untiring a really tempting second ascendancy pick if you're Bone Shatter, just because of the regen. If not, I think your second point is probably going to be Undeniable. It's still really tempting to go Undeniable for Bone Shatter, though. They're both really tempting for Bone Shatter. But just getting accuracy solve without having to bum rush RT and take some bad nodes along the way, I think is the ideal second point, because just Leap Slam speed is king for act progression. But, there's a couple good life nodes along the way you can take. You could come over here and get... it's probably not worth Golem Blood for 4. But later on, when you kind of start to run out of nodes, it'll be a little more tempting. From there, I'm probably going to come up here. It seems a little wasteful at first, but you're going to have to just kind of take a few not super winners. But there are some good nodes over here. There's the new Rage on hit, max Rage. Rage is multiplicative damage now. So this is going to give you, 36% more damage, and this is all, 3 Rage on hit. I'm going to run Leap Slam with Rage support once I get to Act 6 and get the Gem Vendor. Rage support now also gives attack speed if you have Rage. That's even better for Leap Slam. So Leap Slams will give you 6 Rage, and normal attacks will give you 3. But then I'm probably going to take the Intimidate here, because there's not usually a good source of Intimidate otherwise. So you'll pretty much guaranteed have Rage, and nearby enemies take 10% increased attack damage while you have Rage. So that's a very good mastery. I will probably take the Fortify. I like Duration for quality of life, because Fortify 2 more stacks versus actually having like 11-second duration is a big deal. And then I'm going to take the -3 Fortify on hit, so I don't have to run Fortify support. It's just nice, 21% DR. It's not bad for... It's 5 points, but then you get, 11-second duration. But if you favor damage more, you should probably go for the Fortification last. Like, you could do it after you do the Axe Mastery, but Axe Mastery gives even more Rage. You can take this, but it might be overkill. You could even drop the Rage Wheel for the Axe Mastery. I don't often like running Weapon Mastery slots because it pigeonholes you into one on weapon type, but the way most people do the campaign is they do the Belt Whetstone Vendor recipe and just get like a set blue axe, so they always control the weapon type they have. That's probably the best way to do it, but these are a little bit redundant in terms of rage generation. You could go one or the other, or you could just go both. More good life nodes over here. It's probably worth taking the endurance charges with the way they're buffed for LE damage reduction. You could come up here and take RT at this point, or just, you know, rely on the undeniable to carry. But you start to get to the point where you're, you know, either taking some like not great nodes. For the bandit, by the way, I'm probably gonna take a Lyra. It's not, you don't have to, but it's just all the res you're gonna get, and you know, a Lyra 15, you're pretty much not gonna need res on gear. Around this time though, I'll probably take these, and I'll probably take the cannot be reduced for like curses and LE weakness. But you can take this earlier. It comes down to your gear. If you're like in Act 4 and you're res capped, then, you know, the max res is good. But if you're in Act 5 and you only have like, your res is like 60, 40, 70, well then obviously the max res isn't that good. So once you get to a spot where your res is overcapped, or, you know, maybe if you're about to kill Kitava Act 5 and you're not 30 overcapped, don't take it. But if you're 30 overcapped for Kitava, suddenly max res starts to sound pretty good. So basically this is a whenever you get to the point where you can fit the max res, then take it. But this should about line up with what I had. The life mastery, it's ideal to not have a chest with life on it. But there's, you know, you can take this 2-pointer here. You can take the 15% cost reduction still. That's an option. Early, you could take a plus 30 life node. They've nerfed this, though. It used to be 50. Like sub-level 30, this is still a good single point. But beyond that, from being nerfed from 50 to 30, it's a little bit worse. But you can take the cost life skill reduction. From there, you get to a point where your next options are basically either to, like, you know, go precise technique, which is a pretty big jump, or come up here, like in the divine shield area. But this should get you, let's see if I nailed it. Let's see if I got everything right. Did I miss anything? This should get you about to where I had it. I think everything's lined up here. Did I miss anything? Looks like I got it all. Yeah, I don't know if this is even worth it for 5, but this is just like a I'm running out of points thing, because this is level 71. So you don't need the Golem Blood if you're 67. This is around when you'll be killing Kitava. You know, you start getting into white maps, so I don't think it's quite worth rushing the Endurance Charge and Frenzy yet with the socket, but it's borderline. But probably around this point, I'm gonna, you know, like take the Strength node just because it's like generically good stats. It's phys damage, all that. But then like the 1% damage per lowest attribute. Now I know I have no gear equipped, but at about this point, it's not unreasonable for your attributes to be like 500, 150, 150. Maybe a little lower in the end, but if you've got some rolls for it, this can be like 30% increased damage node. Otherwise, you can just take whatever. But from here, you're looking at a point where you're maybe able to switch Zenith, or you're able to go harder into like something like Bone Shatter. So this is like the I'm in white maps. It's level 75 now. It's like, this is where I'm going to go Zenith, but you could just go harder into Bone Shatter. If you're going to go Bone Shatter, you could just discard this entirely and just go like a specific Bone Shatter leveling setup. But I mean, most of the Marauder League starts you look at are going to be pretty similar to this. You're obviously prioritizing like the same stats for those because Bone Shatter really wants attack speed, because it kind of double dips between being a linear damage scaler and a trauma scaler that gives you flat, or gives you more multiplier. So similar stat priority, you know, you get attack speed, it all works out good. But around this point is where you're going to look to switch to one of those, and they're both strike skills. About that point, you're going to come up here and get the +1 strike target. It really doesn't feel that great to go strike skills without getting +1 target here. So you get 0.2 meter range is also good, because a lot of skills are losing some range that are baked into gem levels right now. So that 0.2 meters can make all the difference. You know, if you can get more sources than that, even better. But about this point, though, you're now like level 80, 83. This is around the point, maybe 84 if you get a socket here for 1 point. You're in a trade league, I assume. You can start taking some of like the 2-point sockets and try to buy some 3-stat jewels, because the 3-stat jewels worth 2 points. You're now at a point where you're looking to make like an actual full swap. If you can get a Crown of Eyes and an Iron Fortress, we don't know what the prices will be like, but at that point you can finally come up here and go for the Iron Will finisher. And then if you switch your weapon over to like an elemental weapon like I had with like the Woe Essence craft, about that time you can start to spam regret and take out all the phys two-hand nodes and just go and start to transition to the pure Ellie setup, where you drop all the phys damage nodes and have like the actual elemental damage tree. But there might be a little bit of a gap between that like 83 I left off at and here. So there's going to be some farming with like that rough setup, and like I said, you could go Bone Shatter, but I'm probably going to switch Zenith at like 70 just to get reps at it early and be able to, best handle advice after having played it as undergeared as humanly possible. But yeah, I'm not going to go crazy into skills. I mean, like aura choices, you have like a Blood and Sand. You can go determ. You have 12% reservation mastery. You can go purity of elements. You may not need the actual res to cap if you're taking a Lyra. So determination is still kind of okay. Got the flat nerf by half, but if you go unbreakable for Merc Lab especially, I don't know if it's worth it then. Maybe it's an Uber Lab point, but you just chest armor scales your flat, at least for Jug, harder than the flat on determination does. So it's still an okay aura, but maybe Purity of Elements makes more sense just for the generic ailment immunity. Arctic Armor, I like when I get to maps and like hard content. But when you're just trying to zoom and leap slam through like white maps to get Atlas completion, Arctic Armor is a little weak. Purities are still as strong as ever. Those weren't nerfed. So it kind of just depends on what you need to fill your gaps. I'm not going to like fully advise you to like, use Herald of Ash at level, what? Nah, there's plenty of good options, but I'm probably gonna go for speed. Even haste isn't wrong. Haste has gotten buffed. A lot of auras are bad low level with low scaling, and like haste is still kind of decent. Anything that gives move speed and attack speed is gonna maybe help your campaign time. But yeah, I'm not gonna go too crazy into gems. Like I said, I'm going Sunder. I don't plan on doing War Cries because I like to leap slam, and I don't want to take a whole mastery wheel for like 5 points just to get the Can't Exert leap slam. And I don't want to, reserve half my mana doing auto exert. I don't want to do the Warcry piano manually. It's just a lot of effort and pain and suffering for what is, in my opinion, limited power. Unless your build is like actually set up for, an exerted playstyle. I don't like the idea of doing it in campaign, even though maybe it's like slightly better. It's just a lot of effort put in and set up for when, in my opinion, not much gain. But yeah. You get to a point where you can start going for larges, and then you can, make the swap. I showed this sword in the video. I mentioned this. The way you'd probably craft is try to get a, like, Reaver or one of the bases that you don't really care about the phys damage, so it can be a lower level base. It doesn't make that much of a difference. That just has, like, an okay flat Ellie roll, and then you just Woe Essence until you hit, like, another flat roll or, like, a good attack speed roll. And you're kind of done. Like, then you just kind of arrive at what this weapon is. That's good enough. There is, in the one POB that's, like, up to 20 div, Rakiata's sword. That is a good option. It's, like I said, it was like a 90% upgrade over this sword. So it's very good. But, I had people in the videos say, it's tier 0. Everyone's going to play it if it's 90% upgraded for that build. It's going to be like 100 div. It's not, for one reason. And that one reason is there's only one unique engraved greatsword. So the worst this can cost is 1 Omen of Fortune. And 1 Omen of Fortune, I looked this up earlier. Let me look it up in Necropolis here. Pull it up real quick. 1 Omen of Fortune. This can change. Obviously, it's different league to league. After a few days was only 300 chaos. Like, so they're crazy high here just because they don't exist. Don't pay too much attention to the first couple days. Like, they drop like a cliff just because, like, there's people actually encountering them and, like, doing the content now, right? Like, we know Omens are still in the game next league. There's an option in the auction house tab for them. But on, like, the day 6 mark, they're at 334 chaos. For a weapon upgrade that can nearly double your damage on an already fairly strong character, 300 chaos is not unreasonable. So to all the people who think like, oh, it's going to be 100 div tier 0 unit, no, it's an omen of fortune. That's the worst case. So, bit of a, what I consider a short guide for what I usually make. But for some people, maybe this is probably like 13 minutes or something's already dragging on. But that's the tree progression. There's a lot of flexibility here. If there's anything you see where you're like, Connor, I wouldn't do that, I do this. If you're already questioning it, just go with your gut. This is more for people who are unsure completely and want to have like a rough guide and basically do what I'm doing. Because this is what I'm going to do. This is like, I will do this. You will watch me do this and I will get to the finish line. It's just, there might be someone who's leveled a lot more characters that I have that can shave minutes in certain spots. But if you're looking for the advice, here it is. I'll catch you guys next time.